first, I'm Diane with National Garden Bureau. We are hosting these webinars, so thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everybody who's attending. We're recording this. We'll put it out on YouTube after. If you see a lot of links being posted in chat, those are coming from Gail here in our office, and she's going to be giving you some helpful links to things. And by the way, you can save the chat at the end of the meeting. We can go over that later, but let's introduce our panelists. We have Peter from Bayer Seminis, and we have Jason from Cicada. Okay, Peter, why don't you introduce yourself and your company?
Well, as Don said, I'm Peter Westerbeek. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Zone 7, I guess, is B now. Yeah, Bayer Seminis has a long legacy in the home garden space, going back well into the 30s. We're fortunate to be the breeder developer of a lot of the sort of traditional hybrid varieties in the home garden space in the tomato world, the Better Boys, the Big Beefs, the Celebrities, the Early Girls, Lemon Boys. That whole series is our germplasm, and we're proud to represent it in the marketplace. So I work commercially with large growers in North Carolina as part of my responsibilities in North Carolina and North Carolina mountains, as well as responsible for several of our large home garden customers. So thanks Dan for inviting me.
Well, thank you for attending. It's always wonderful to have you, and as well with Jason from Cicada. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi, everyone out there. Again, my name is Jason. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I work for a division of Cicada called Cicada Homegrown, in which we primarily sell our vegetable seeds that we breed to seed packet companies, mail order companies, generally speaking, the way that you all receive your seed, whether it's a seed packet or mail order. So that's why I work for that division of Cicada. Cicada's been around for many, many, many years. We are like Peter and Seminis Bayer. We are one of the leaders also in vegetable breeding. One thing I like to say about us, whether it's whatever the topic is, Cicada is a worldwide leader in broccoli, for example. If you go to the supermarket anywhere in the country, or essentially almost the world, and you pick up a head of broccoli, there's a 75% chance that is a Cicada bred variety. So we're very proud of our broccolis, and we are also very proud of our tomatoes.
Awesome. And so we're going to not talk about broccoli today. I think we had a year of broccoli. Oh, hey, I love broccoli. I'm having broccoli for dinner tonight.
Me too, actually.
But we're going to talk about tomatoes today. And I thought, let's just kind of start with some basics and maybe talk about the many different types of tomatoes. We actually have an AAS blog going out today. It's like, well, how do you choose your tomatoes? And I thought one of the ways is to maybe talk about the different types and uses. So I don't know, what do we have? Like 8 different types or so? Do you guys want to take turns talking about them, or some of your favorites?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, you have your beefsteaks, cherry tomatoes, Romas, saladettes, globes, as Diane said. So there's many different types out there. Generally speaking, when you're going to buy a tomato to slice up and put on your hamburger, your sandwich, you go to the supermarket to get one of those. That's considered one of your globe varieties. It's got larger, kind of what they're called locules in the middle of the tomato. If you cut it in half across the equator, and there's those cavities in there filled with gel and the seeds, those are called the locules. And there's a high water content to the globe tomatoes, higher water content. But those are the most common class. That's the most common class that you'll find in a supermarket. You will find occasionally beefsteaks. A lot of those are more primarily purchased at your local garden center as a young plant or through a mail order company seed pack. And the beefsteaks tend to be a little bit larger. They tend to be a little bit more meatier, with less of a water content to them. And they're, I mean, it's kind of as the name implies. They're almost like a steak whenever you slice it. And then you get into the others. I don't know if, Peter, you want to expound upon that.
Well, I mean, the Roma type, saladette types,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
your typical salsa making type, pear shaped, or I don't know how you want more elongated shape, both indeterminate and determinate types. And typically that is what is used in, for instance, in processing market for in California, Ohio, and around the world is that type.
Yeah.
That's also what's mainly used in Hispanic cultures for salsa making, stuff like that. Grape
Yeah.
and cherry, just different shaped. One's round, one's more of an elliptical shape. Small types, snacking types, eat them whole. Those are the smaller types, and a lot of variability in terms of color, size, eating quality, plant
Flavor.
type of all these. You know, you can get different colors of all these. You can get different maturities of all these. You can get indeterminate determinants of all these. So they're broken out by this type of shape and size. They're also broken out by indeterminate and determinate genetic types as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm afraid that we made that confusing for everyone out there, me, and but there are many types out there. What it comes down to is what you like and what you want.
Very true. Yes. And okay, we've got our third panelist. She'll come on in 1 second. But my question is now go ahead and explain indeterminate, determinate, and semi-determinate.
Well, basically, they are what they sound like they are. So a determinate means the plant will grow to a sort of defined height based on its genetics, and it will not necessarily exceed that height. And that's sort of predetermined by its base genetics. Indeterminate, that leader growing point, will grow indeterminate amount of time depending on the growing conditions and that sort of thing. So that's the two basic differences. And the indeterminates or semi-determinates, whatever term you use, are basically a mix of those two. They will likely grow to a certain point and stop, but that time is sort of indeterminate based on the growing conditions. So
Right.
it's like a stepping up. Determinants would, by definition, be shorter than semi-determinates, which would definitely be shorter than indeterminates. That's the stepping up.
Yeah. And one other note to mention about the difference between determinate and indeterminate. Your determinates will have a early and heavy fruit set, and then it'll tend to kind of peter off as you get later into the season. Whereas your indeterminates, so long as environmental conditions are good, they're not getting attacked by diseases, they'll continue to produce through the summer.
Okay. And welcome, Natasha. It looks like Natasha is on the road. So we welcome you and thank you for joining in. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your company?
Yes, so I'm Natasha Grosskopf. I work for Pan American Seed. I've worked in trials for about 5 years and now I'm in product management for vegetables. Um, we do a lot for the home garden segment, a lot of quirky products, different colors, different patterns, tomatoes, peppers, a lot of basil. So happy to be here. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
That's okay. You weren't the first one. So
Oh, you have no idea what I went through, Natasha.
I think this is our week. I've heard that the horoscopes this week are just saying, forget it. Just
It's
go
the
home and
red
call it
moon,
in.
Diane. It was the red moon. That's
The
what it
red
was.
moon that did it. Yeah, it's been doing it all week. So, okay, but we're going to talk more about tomatoes. And we had a whole list of planned questions, but I'm getting so many from our attendees that I kind of want to get through those. Okay, I'm just going to go through them. There's no certain order. Is there a tomato with very low acid or oils? And she was asking this because of some allergies.
Pink tomatoes are generally considered to be the lowest acid type, is my understanding. The others can validate that. It's always been what I've been told.
Peter, I couldn't hear you. What tomatoes? I'm sorry.
The pink, generally the pinks types,
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones that are
Yeah.
bred for Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Pinks overall have higher sugar, lower acid, is my understanding of the genetics.
Yes. I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
And you can get into some of the cherry tomatoes that we were talking about a little bit ago, and grape tomatoes, which are low in acid. They have a high, they're very sweet. I mean, Peter, I think one of them is your varieties. It's actually my favorite variety is Sun Sugar, which is, one of the sweetest tomatoes out there, very low acidity. So, yeah, once you get into some of those cherries and grapes, not all of them, but many of them have a lower acidity.
And Natasha be able to speak some of the heirloom types. I do know there's probably some heirloom stuff that is low acid that's not as well defined genetically.
Yeah, a lot of people speak to yellows being lower acid. They don't have as high sugar content and a little bit lower flavor. But yeah, I would say the yellows as well.
Okay, so one of the coolest things that I found out years ago when I first started visiting the California veggie trials that you guys do is the Brix and how it's measured. So, can you talk about Brix and maybe what some average Brix level? Oh, Jason's going to show us a tool, I bet. Uh,
I I was going. It's in my. I was hoping it was right behind me. It's in the glove compartment of my car.
I
I
have
can't.
a webinar
A
It'll only take me
refractometer.
30 seconds if you want me to go down and get it, so they can
That's
see.
okay. Why don't
Okay.
you just explain what Brix is, and maybe you can show, not show, but explain what the Brixometer or whatever it is called.
Yeah. Um, I, I don't know how it works, to be honest. I mean, I can use it. I mean, I use it all the time, but I don't know how it determines the Brix. But essentially, it's determining the percent sugar content of a liquid that you're placing into this instrument, if you will. And so, it's, about this big. It's almost like a telescope. It's like a telescope that you look through. And at the opposite end of this telescope, there is a clear glass or plastic flap that folds up. And underneath that, then you are placing some of the juice of the tomato, watermelon, cantaloupe, whatever it is. And you're closing that flap back down onto it. Okay. And then you are holding it up towards a light source, perhaps my light there or the sun, and you're looking through. And then there is, I don't know how to explain it, almost like a ruler from 0 to 100. And you'll see, at least for in the one that I use, there'll be a line right at, say, 10. So that means there's 10% sugar content in that liquid in there. So I hope I made that reasonably clear. It's called if I recall correct, it's a refractometer. Is that correct, Peter and Natasha?
Yeah,
Yeah.
refractometer. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how it works. I have no idea. But
Percent of soluble sugars is what it's measuring.
yeah, okay.
It's very fun to watch. I mean, when everybody's out there and you're testing your watermelons and your tomatoes and everything. So,
But Diane, in
It's a-
tomatoes, sugars don't equal flavor.
that is correct.
oh, okay. Now that's something new to me. I did not know that. So, do you try for a certain Brix in all tomatoes then? Is there a goal?
In the processing market, it's measured very heavily because that impacts the processed product. I'd say from almost all other areas, it's a sort of a balance that contributes to flavor. So there are Brix genes. I'm sure Sakata is working with it. I'm sure Natasha's companies we're working with Brix genes that elevate Brix. Once you start working with that germplasm, you realize that it does not as and of itself equal flavor. It's an acid to soluble sugar to other flavor compounds. Tomatoes are pretty complex, and it is a mix of those that determines flavor. And people perceive flavor obviously differently. Some people who like sweeter tomatoes would never like a celebrity, which is considered a high acid tomato by most people. Would not like celebrity because it considered too acid for them, even though celebrity often Brix very well.
Yeah, I agree. And the other component, as Peter said, there's other components that are, bred for and we taste for. And one thing that I'm assuming Peter and Pan Am also do, but we are breeding for an umami flavor in addition to the acidity and the sweetness. And that umami flavor brings in a whole different, just kind of adds a whole different level to that flavor of the tomato.
Okay. So we're talking a lot about taste here. So, Natasha, you might want to answer this one. Somebody said they used to order a very tiny red tomato, a currant type tomato,
Yep.
and she's unable to get it from this person anymore. But you might have an AS winner that you would like to suggest as a currant tomato.
Yes, we have Candyland Red, and I do think it's one of our better tasting tomatoes. It's an indeterminate, and the plant will be extremely wild in your garden, but you will get an insane amount of small little round fruits from there. Um, I know some growers that we work with, they grow them specifically because people ask for them and they sell them by the pints. But yeah, you will not run out of tomatoes if you grow Candyland Red. It is a very good, super sweet tomato.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. So some other questions.
Make sure you have, and like she said, make sure you have room in your garden for it if you grow it.
Yes.
Oh
They
yeah,
are
yep. It will
extremely
not
vigorous.
stop.
It won't. I've done the same thing. I'm like doing this to try to pick them from the top. Yeah.
You might have volunteers for years to come.
So, but now will those volunteers be the same as the original?
They will not. Candyland is a hybrid, so anything that comes from that as a volunteer the next year will not be the same.
Okay. So a few questions here on, I'm trying to decide where to start. I always go for taste and flavor, and that's often the appeal of heirlooms. And that's what a lot of people say about heirlooms. So why is that often lacking in a hybrid? And is that still the case? I feel like a lot of the breeders are working on bringing that heirloom flavor back into a hybrid. So anybody want to address that?
Yeah, I can. So I won't argue. Yes, a lot of the heirloom varieties are very high in flavor. Um, with a lot of them, however, they will lack most of them will lack disease resistances, yields. So hence why Cicada and Bayer, Seminis, and Pan Am, we breed hybrids. And so the reason why the hybrids sometimes have a little bit less flavor, and we're working past that now, is because as you breed into hybrid varieties, higher disease resistances, higher yields. Just regrettably, as science works, that's sometimes at the expense of flavor. But again, with that said, we're all still getting by that. We all have varieties that are very high in flavor, that have the disease resistances and the higher yields.
Yeah, Dan, I'd also say that the modern grocery store type tomato develops its flavors very, very, very late. You know, through my whole career, I've had plenty of times where I've picked tomato trials mature green, where the fruit are completely green, and put boxes in my garage, and a month later, giving those tomatoes away, and people said that's a fantastic eating tomato. Where did you get that? Well, it's just, I tell people, if you're going to have to buy a tomato from a grocery store, buy 5 of them, put them in a paper bag, walk away for a week, come back, throw the one that's rotten away, and eat the other 4.
Let them develop their true flavors.
Those genetics just develop those complex flavors very much later, because we have bred a lot of firmness into that germplasm, and with that firmness, it's just a delayed ripening. In my opinion, a delayed ripening that just requires a lot more time sitting before you consume it. They will get there.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're growing your own, then, and I'll let each one of you address this, what do you think is the best tasting late blight resistant tomato?
Ooh.
I have one that comes to my mind. Bear with me. I have to check behind me to make sure it is late blight resistant. I'm pretty certain it is.
Okay. And I know that that's something that everybody's working on now.
And in the meantime, if anyone else wants to.
Is Mountain Majesty resistant to late blight? It's not ours, but
and we
want
have
to say it
some
is.
AF winners that are Mountain Magic, I believe is.
Is it Mountain Magic, the one that's a real good one?
Yeah, I think the whole Mountain series,
It's
right?
Mountain Magic. You're right, Diane. It's
Yeah.
Mountain Magic that is late blight resistant, and it's not overly big tomato, but that's a very good tomato.
Yes.
If you're going to require late blight.
For me, it's super easy. It's one of our products, and I know that sounds biased, but I love Dark Star. It's an indeterminate. It's a pretty controlled indeterminate tomato. It's like a purpley style heirloom, and it has super nice green gel and makes a really nice slice for a sandwich or any salad. That's probably my favorite one.
Nice and colorful too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And the one that I was thinking actually is not late blight resistant. So I'm going to have to defer on that one. And off the top of my head, I don't have another variety that comes to my mind. My apologies.
That's okay. We'll have other opportunities here. Let's hear it. We asked that one. So somebody had said earlier that cherry and grape tomatoes really are about the same flavor, and somebody is asking one of the sweetest types of cherry tomatoes. So we're looking for varieties.
I'll call out Peter's Sun Sugar again.
Yeah, Sun Sugar, Sun Gold are the standard.
Okay.
Yeah, those are very good ones.
And are those both gold, yellow colored?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that's a predicate though. I mean, there are other varieties that are good that are cherry types that aren't gold. But if you're asking for what I think the industry presumes the standards to be, it's those two.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now this kind of goes to what you were talking about, Peter. I've seen some tomatoes that last for months on the counter. Are there any varieties that you recommend for those who want fresh tomatoes to last for a long time?
Pretty much your standard globe types. All your standard globe types, your determinate, let me say globe types, because some of your indeterminate globe types are more in that beefsteak category and are longer in the tooth, like our big beef and all those. Those are not modern genetics. But I think any of your determinate red round types from any of the three breeders here are of that type. And I will consistently pick all my tomatoes at the blush stage, at the breaker stage. I never let them go to full ripe on the plant. Botanically speaking, they are mature when they break color, and they're not imbibing any more water into the fruit. So once they start to break the color, they've kind of sealed off that layer below the stem there. So at the calyx. So I always take mine and put them inside, keep them relatively warm. Never put a tomato in the refrigerator ever, and let them ripen inside.
Thank you for saying that.
Yep.
Can you repeat that part about refrigerator?
And one of the benefits about harvesting when they're just starting to blush is you're able to bring them inside the protection of your house, so it's away from squirrels and other vermin that may nibble on them.
Absolutely. Okay. Are there any controls or sprays to keep tomatoes from getting either early or late blight?
Liquid copper, there's really, Natasha and Peter, you both can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really not anything that is going to be 100% effective against those blights.
No.
It's generally considered that, preventative occasional sprays of liquid copper can help. Some of the primary things that you want to do as far as when you're growing the tomatoes is keep good airflow around them. On your indeterminate varieties, take out the suckers so you get good airflow, clean up leaves, fallen leaves underneath the plants. Try not to overhead water. If you've got in-ground irrigation or something like that, that's even better. But you want to keep the environment around the plant as hostile to blights as possible, which is dry and airy.
Yeah, I would agree. For home garden, I would say there's not much you can spray on there. But I think, yeah, it's more about plant maintenance. Don't prune the plants when they're wet and when they have the morning dew. Wait till everything dries out a little bit. Yeah, and just remove any debris is super important. Crop rotation. Don't plant your tomatoes in the same place
any leaves
everywhere.
touching the soil, prune. Any leaves that are touching the soil, take up. Commercial guys don't necessarily do that, but they're spraying for management. If you're in a home garden environment, do not let leaves touch the soil. Prune those lateral leaves, to those leaf clusters off if they anywhere close to the ground. The more you can get them off the ground, the better.
Okay, that's very good, because somebody did have a question about pruning. Should I which ones, determinate, indeterminate?
Well,
yeah, I think you'll get into a lot of arguments about this. I mean, you get into some of these farm market growers or commercial growers, not necessarily so much the commercial growers, but home gardeners. Oh, I've got to prune out my suckers on my indeterminates, and others say, nah, you don't have to do that. So you get this. But generally speaking, it's regarded for your indeterminate types of tomatoes. Those are the types, as Peter described earlier, that don't have a determined height of growth. So they kind of keep growing so long as the environment allows. You do prune out the suckers, and the suckers would be you have your main stem coming up the plant, and then you have a leaf, a large leaf that comes out. And right in that axil right there, you'll have a new shoot coming out, and that would be called your suckers. And so what a lot of people will do is pinch those out or cut them out. And what does two things, like I said earlier. It helps provide more air circulation inside the plant. But now, once you take out those suckers, they are not using the energy that the plant is generating with photosynthesis and water. And so that can allow to go to the fruits to higher yields, larger fruits. So, yeah. Generally speaking, determinants it's not done so much with.
Yeah, the industry generally provides pruning recommendations. So if you don't know, there's probably an online resource or on the tag will tell you what the breeder is telling the. Hopefully, it's there, and follow that, because that is. I hope they're following what we are telling them, what Sakata's telling them, and what and they're putting that for the grower's benefit, whether it be a home garden or commercial grower. We do that work.
Okay, check the tag, check the catalog. Speaking of catalogs or retailers, and I think I'm going to answer this question, but somebody says, I'm from Ontario, Canada. Many of the tomatoes you're suggesting are not available here. Do you ship over the border? Well, you're not going to get a plant to ship over the border. So what I was going to suggest is on the National Garden Bureau website where it says shop our members, we have a list of retail members in Canada, and Gail can post that. And that's probably your best bet, is to look for some of the retailers. There are wonderful seed retailers in Canada. So hopefully you will be able to get some of these varieties from them. Okay, so the next question, we've got two actually on this one, is about crop rotation. This person says, as a home gardener, I have to grow my tomatoes in the same space every summer. What soil amendments would I need to have a successful crop? Or what do you suggest for this growing situation when I have limited space? So basically two questions asked differently, but I want to know this too. I've got a very small crop, and I either put tomatoes or peppers there, which are kind of one and the same. They're the same family. So what can I do to clean up that soil? And, in an ideal world, if it is crop rotation, is it every other year, or do you have to wait longer?
Yeah, that's a tough one. If you don't have enough room for crop rotation, yeah, that does make it a little bit more difficult, as Natasha referenced a little bit ago, with blight. I mean, that is a pathogen that overwinters in the soil. So as a home gardener, regrettably, there's not a whole lot that you can do to fully sterilize that soil. So it's going to come down, a lot of it, to sanitation. And as Natasha referenced again earlier, it is cleaning up those leaves at the end of the season. Sanitation is going to be of utmost importance. If you do have the room to rotate, after about 3 years, you want to rotate out of that spot, or even earlier than that. You would want to leave, even after the first year, if you have enough room, leave that ground fallow for 2-3 years after that, then go back into it.
And I would also say there are a lot of really great container varieties now. So maybe even if that includes like rotating to some containers for tomatoes for the off years, that might help as well.
That was going to be my suggestion. That's what I do. I have them in big old containers, and I just put new soil in every year, and that definitely helps.
Yeah, there's no silver bullet there.
No.
Fortunately.
Okay, now we've got two questions about temperatures. At what air temperature do tomato flowers cease to fruit? Or is it true that hot nights will prevent fruit setting? I've had a tough time growing tomatoes since moving to Texas, and I've been told that is why. And Is there anything you can do?
Well, that is true.
Yep.
There is I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, right, Jason, somewhere in the mid-90s where tomato pollen becomes unviable.
Yeah, your night temperatures, I was under the impression it's 90 degrees, but it might be higher than that. You might be correct.
Yeah,
It's
people think
hot
it's daytime, but it's nighttime temperatures that
Yeah.
that's really the driver of poor pollination.
And so your get around to that for whomever asked the question is all three of us, we breed what we call hot set varieties that are resistant to, I shouldn't say it that way, but I guess resistant to the warm nights and where the pollen is deactivated, if you will. So we all breed varieties that have heat tolerances to them. So you want to search out some of those varieties.
Yeah, for sure.
And
good hydration, make sure the plant's well watered, all good fertility, all that will help. But using heat set varieties is your main strategy there, for sure.
And when I said, there's those varieties out there, I didn't mean to make it sound like, boy, they're going to be really hard to find. No, they're very common heat set varieties. I mean, tons of tomatoes are grown in Texas and Florida and the deep South. So there's plenty of heat set varieties out there.
And that's what to look for is heat set or. Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Let's see here. How to control radial cracking in tomatoes. I water and fertilize regularly and I mulch as well.
Peter, that one and Natasha, I actually do not know.
So I'm assuming we're talking radial cracking. We're not talking about concentric cracking, but the radial cracking is generally imbibing water very fast or very fast growth rate or expansion of the fruit.
Oh, yeah.
There is a genetic component to it. Some varieties are more prone to it than others. But even the best commercial varieties that we're marketing to farmers, if you get the right conditions, they will radial crack. It's just a matter of condition. If your watering schedule is so like what I'm forced to do because my gardens aren't at home, and it gets dry and you get a 2-3 inch rain you can't control, you're going to see some cracking. Again, one of the ways to mitigate that, harvest your tomato as soon as it shows color.
A great reason to do that. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned, let's see here, you called it one thing, but then there's the concentric circles. Is that a different type of cracking? And how would you
rain checking or concentric cracking? And generally that's on your more exposed fruit where rain is sitting or water is sitting on the top of the fruit. And this sort of plant is sort of naturally resisting that. And it is genetic as well. A lot of your heirloom and older varieties are more prone to that. Again, the sooner you can harvest it as soon as you see color, you'll have less of that. It gets worse as the fruit sits on the plant.
Okay. Now let's talk about, this question. How important is the taproot? Will I be more successful if I direct sow instead of transplant?
I know of no one direct seeding tomatoes anywhere.
Yeah, there's really not any direct seeding done. It's pretty much all done by transplant.
Okay. And then who would like to explain plants that are labeled F1 and F2? Now, I haven't seen many tomatoes labeled F2.
Yeah.
You don't see F2s out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a breeder, so I can't fully explain the difference between F1 and F2. Perhaps Peter and Tasha can. But F1 is essentially your male and female parents, open pollinated male and female parents, and they are crossed. The pollen from one flower is placed onto the pollen of the male flower, and then that fruit that is harvested, formed and harvested, that in the seed from that is now your F1 hybrid. Now, from F1 to F2, I do not know the difference.
F2 is simply the fruit resulting from an F1 fruit. So if you saved seed from an F1 fruit, that's the F2. It could be It could be either parent, it could be a combination of two, or it could be any combination of pollen that came from another. Bee moves pollen from another plant into there, and you've got that too. So F2 is simply the seed resulting from seed of an F1 hybrid fruit.
So if you're growing a lot of F2s, most likely they will all look very different from each other. It will not be a uniform plant population. Every single plant will be genetically different.
It's called surprise gardening.
Yeah, so we went into
that. Okay, let's see here. Can you recommend companion plants that are good to grow next to tomato plants? Or what should you not grow next to tomato plants? You know, you see a lot of myths, grandma myths and things like that. So are they true? Should you plant marigolds next to tomatoes? Will it do any good?
You know, me personally, regarding marigolds, I consider it a wives' tale, but I'm certainly not an expert on that matter. There are some trap crops which you can plant alongside tomatoes, and a trap crop would be something where a common pest to tomatoes. So let's take tomato hornworm, for example. Tomato hornworms obviously like tomatoes. However, there are other host plants they like even more. And off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think there's a cucurbit or two out there. I can't remember what they are. But if you plant those near the tomatoes, the tomato hornworms, they prefer those rather than the tomatoes. So there's things like that that you can do.
Yeah, I would say I haven't seen marigolds repel insects, like I've seen in a lot of places online, but
I just plant basil because it and tomatoes go together.
Oh yeah, yeah. On a positive side, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And plant whatever likes the same amount of water and sun and everything else like that. Yeah.
Right.
I would say for management purposes, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. I asked that one. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to answer this. I freeze my Roma tomatoes. I have them in a sealed glass dish in the freezer, but then they smell like chemicals. Any ideas about that?
No.
I have no idea.
No, I'm sorry. I do not either.
Yeah.
I love Romas though.
Yeah.
But I like freezing them before I make sauce. If you like making sauce from them, because then when you take them out of the freezer and let them thaw a little bit, the skin will come off real easy.
Yep.
Yeah, ruptures the internal membranes.
You got it.
Excellent. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with these here. Any tips on Husk cherry tomatoes? Any favorite varieties?
Never grown
them. Neither have I. I'm sorry. So I can't recommend any.
I mean, like ground cherries, Aunt Molly's is a typical one. Or there's another one that's pineapple that has a more unique taste. It's not sour. It's kind of like vanilla-y, and that one's pretty good, depending on what you want to do with them. But both of those are pretty easy to grow. They yield crazy. Yeah.
They're kind
if they're like tomatillos, they'll put seed everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. Yes. Yep, they will. So be prepared to weed those out. Let's see here. Okay. Are seed companies working on dwarf and micro-dwarf tomato plants, tomato varieties?
Yeah, certain ones. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say we are working on that a lot.
And yours are called kitchen minis, right?
Yeah, for the micro-dwarfs, it would be the kitchen mini. So we have 3 right now. One that's a little bit bigger plant, but 2 reds and 1 kind of chocolate brown tomato. But yep, trying to get more colors in there. Super good flavor, different shapes. There's some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And Staccato also does work in that realm. We do have some super dwarfs. Ours are called the Little Birdie series: Red Robin, Yellow Canary, Rosy Finch. And when I say super dwarf, they are super dwarf. I mean, they'll max 12 inches, even if that. And they're all 3 cherry tomatoes: a yellow, red, and pink.
Excellent. I see Gail is posting some of those there. And you can also check the NGB new varieties because we have new varieties from all of our members, and I'm sure you'll find some in there. Let's talk about staking tomatoes. I know that there's a lot of favorite ways that people use to stake or cage. I don't know, maybe each one of you just tell us your favorite way of staking.
I think it's whatever works for anyone. To be honest with you, I just use a traditional tomato cage. Now, with that said, I can't garden in my personal garden here in my yard because I have zero sun. So it's all maple trees. So across the street, my neighbor has a large garden. He lets me put a few tomato plants over there. So I have 6, 7, or 8 tomato plants. That's it. And I grow primarily determinate varieties, and the tomato cages work just fine for me. Um, as I mentioned earlier, Sun Sugar is one of my favorite tomatoes, if not my favorite. It is an indeterminate and more vigorous. And I just find that if I use a large tomato cage, the largest I can find, it suffices. Yes, by the end of the summer or mid late summer, yeah, it is growing out of that tomato cage and falling over the top. But I'm okay with that. If it gets a little too heavy and it's leaning one way and it wants to pull the tomato cage over, I just drive a tall stake down inside the cage, which holds it up. There's many other methods out there, depending how much you want to get into it. Something called the Florida weave. There's many methods out there, or just as simple as a stake, and it tied off to the stake. But that's primarily for your determinate varieties.
Okay, Peter, I want to hear what you do because I know you're
well, my determinants I Florida weave in down a linear row. On my indeterminates, I put 4x4 posts, and then I run plumber's conduit, metal plumber's conduit between the poles, and then I string down from those.
So Peter's going high tech on it. Yep. Peter's going higher tech on it. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll use the tomato clips at the base of the plant, and then if I can clip going up, I will. If not, I'll just kind of wind them into it. But that's what I've traditionally done on my indeterminates is 4x4 posts. About, I guess they're probably at 12 feet apart, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't use PVC, because 1-inch PVC is not strong enough. Get electrical metal conduit or plumber's metal conduit, and that will work just fine. Watch your span, because your span is, you put too much weight, it's going to dip and your strings are going to sink, and that's just got to learn that.
Yeah, someone just mentioned in the chat cattle panels. A lot of people use cattle panels.
Yeah, so they'll work fine.
You don't know what a cattle panel is for some of those listening out there. I mean, it's galvanized steel, and I don't know, it's not a sheet. I mean, but it's what do you call it? But the openings, are about 2x2 or 3x3. It's almost like chicken wire, but it's square and heavier gauge. And a lot of people will use that cattle panel.
If you're going to prune your indeterminates really aggressively, bamboo works good. Single bamboo leader up the plant. I've seen that a lot.
Natasha, do you have any favorites?
I do Florida weave. I would say it depends how much time you have and how much pruning you want to do. I want to do minimal, so Florida weave is worth the time to weave the string and keep them going and up.
Okay, now
plenty of online resources how to do the Florida weave. It's not that hard.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
I think one of the links that Gail just posted, because we did a blog on that, on some different types of training and trellising. A question about hydroponic home scale production. Is there a certain type of tomato you would recommend for hydroponic home production?
So I'm assuming by home production they are meaning indoors. So they are going to be generally speaking, lacking in space and available light. So they're going to be using grow lights. Mm-hmm. So with all that said, I would steer more towards your dwarf tomatoes, perhaps your micro-dwarfs. As far as particular setups go, I can't advise on that, but I would lean towards more of your dwarf tomatoes. for example, online, many of you have probably seen out there is you can buy, kits, from there's Arrow Garden out there. There's some other ones I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're hydroponic kits, that you seed your tomatoes or basil or whatever you want into it, and it has grow light above it. And virtually all those varieties of tomatoes that are supplied with those kits are the Micro-Dwarf type tomatoes.
Let's see. I work with children from 1 to 4 years old. What kind of cherry tomato will work best for this age group to experience?
They're talking about eating?
As far as,
Sunsugar or
taste
Sungold? Yeah.
Sounds like growing.
Talking about growing, probably one of the small types.
The compact.
Yeah, it'll be one of the Micro-Dwarfs that you can do in like a 6 or 8 inch pot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would
Because
agree.
also for patience level, they're pretty quick crop times for tomatoes. So those would work pretty well.
That's true. They may not be as patient as we adults. Maybe. I don't think I'm very patient. Somebody had asked, would you recommend overwintering tomatoes indoors?
I shouldn't say I've never heard of it being done. I suppose I have in the past. It's generally not done. It's generally not recommended. And one of those reasons is because you're possibly harboring diseases that remain on that plant. Once you bring it inside, it could have blight on it or any other pathogens, and you're harboring that and placing it outside next spring, and it's just going to decimate the plant more quickly. So it's generally recommended is you start fresh with new plants every year.
And I would say if you do overwinter it and you bring it back outside, you probably won't have as great of success because the plant will be old and tired and
woody and yep.
woody. So.
Okay. And now what about the controversial planting in a trench versus just planting? Is there certain regions that should plant in a trench, or do you not recommend it? Do you recommend it?
Nothing wrong with it. If you buy really tall plants from a nursery, if you get there late, trench them because all that stem will root. So it's really more of a where are you at question than is it better than the other question. If you have to plant tall transplants, trench them.
Yeah, or plant them deeper. Yeah,
or plant them deeper. My garden is the sandy. The topsoil is really relatively shallow, and if I plant mine too deep, I'm planting them in really a zone where there's no fertility and root development is hard. So I've trenched a lot of mine over the years because of that fact. But oftentimes too, if I'm fair, as I'm getting late to transplant, and I've got a 16, 18 inch tall transplant, and the only real way to make that work is to trench it.
So know your soil.
Yeah, and if your plant gets too big, trenching is a very good way to maximize the productivity of that transplant.
Like I did last year. I started
prune all
mine
the leaves
too
off,
early.
prune all the leaves off to where you're going to bring it vertical and trench it.
Very good. Can you recommend a good source that will help you recognize tomato diseases and treatments? Now, I don't know if this would be a national source or if we're going to tell people to go to their local extension office.
I think your local extension offices are one of the best places. I mean, virtually, yep, from your state. They have a wealth of information for the home gardener.
Yes.
Yeah, because too many things look alike. If you were down in your southeast, tomato spotted wilt virus, things like that don't exist further north. So if you look at a national database, you're going to be struggling through national resources that probably aren't going to give you as quick a response as something from your state. And I think most of your states do a very good job of that.
Agreed. Okay, here's another soil test. Is there any way to test soil for histoplasmosis?
I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Don't know what that is.
Okay. And Can somebody explain trenching? We've got that question.
So rather than digging a hole and putting your plant in it, you dig basically like a ditch. And you lay your tomato horizontally, and at some point you bend the stem upward and cover everything but what's bent upward. And all that from the root ball up to where you bring it vertical is going to root.
Very good. Another question about the temperature. Would it help to shade your plants in hot climates to keep them from going into that non-blooming phase?
It won't necessarily help getting past the non-blooming stage because that's due to hot nights and the sun's not out anyway. But nonetheless, yes, some light shading, 10, 15, 20% shade, especially in the southeast, or out west can be beneficial to the tomato plants. It will keep them a little bit cooler, help retain a little bit more moisture in the soil. So that can be beneficial, and a lot of people do that, especially in the south.
And mulching would also work with that, in companion with that very well. Mulching your soil. Keep your soil cooler.
Okay, we got an answer on the histoplasmosis is a disease passed through bird waste.
Then the answer is no. I know of no soil test that finds diseases, except in the greenhouse business, and they're hyper expensive.
Should seeds for tomatoes, I think it applies for germination. Do they need light to germinate, or should you cover the seeds?
Oh, you definitely cover them.
Cover them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unanimous. What is the ideal space between tomato plants? This is going to be it depends.
Yeah,
you got it.
All depends question.
Yep. You got it.
Yep. Read the seed packet, read the catalog, read the tag.
Yeah, there's so many variables that go to it. Is it determinate? Is it indeterminate? Is it dwarf? Is it a micro-dwarf? How are you staking? Florida weave, you can plant them a little bit tighter. So yeah, there's so many variables that go into that.
And now a question about mentioning when I used containers and pots for my tomatoes, what type of soil. And I would defer to you guys because I usually buy what I have on hand or a general all-purpose potting soil. What do you guys recommend? You're the experts.
For me, I think general potting soil should work fine. The only thing I recommend for containers, because you're probably going to need to water it more, is putting some slow release fertilizer in there, like an Osmocote for vegetables, because pots will always dry out quicker. So yeah, I would add slow release fertilizer in there too.
The other thing that I do, like I said, I can't garden in my yard because it's almost entirely shade. I do have a spot or two where I can put a container, which I do every year. And what I do, what Natasha does, is I use just a potting soil from one of your big box stores, which she mentioned will dry out fairly quickly compared to your soil in your ground, proper soil. So what I do is I'll also buy a bag of garden soil, and I'll mix that with the potting soil, and that garden soil will help retain a little bit more moisture for a longer period of time. Yes, I still have to go out there and water more frequently than what I would if it was planted in the ground, but it helps.
Yeah, mulch a container. So put any kind of rock mulch or pine bark mulch. Pine bark's what I use because it doesn't convey acidity. Definitely mulch the top inch up to the pot line. But do not use your big box potting stools as your seedling mix. If you're growing your own transplants, that is not what you should be using to grow seedlings. You should be using a much finer seed starting mix for that purpose. And that a lot of resources online will explain that, but your average potting soil is way too heavy to grow seedlings, to germinate seedlings with.
Excellent. Yeah. About how long can I keep seeds, tomato seeds? Let's say I order them online and get them this year. How many years might they last if I store them properly? And how do I store them properly?
Well, don't freeze them, which is a common thing I hear. That's old. That is not what you should do. I tell people anywhere in an air-conditioned house where humidity levels are stable, temperature is relatively stable, is basically what seed companies do. You're not hermetically sealed anymore, so you're going to have humidity coming and going. And if you're in a home environment, is pretty much optimal. Don't really need to overthink that. Do not, I tell you, don't leave them in your garage, for instance, where humidity levels will go up or down, temperature will go up or down. Don't do that. And then really, if the seed quality is good, years, they'll last a while.
Correct. Yeah, your peppers and tomatoes, some of them can last even 10 years. I mean, if someone has enough seed that they can spare, if you're questioning the viability of that seed that you want to use for the following year, moisten a paper towel, put 10 seeds on there, and put it in a controlled environment, keep it moist occasionally, and in a few days you'll see what percentage of those 10 seeds start to germinate. If enough of them germinate for you and you're happy with that, then the rest of the seed that's remaining in that packet is good for you, good for the next season for seeding.
Yeah, Jason's note, just Google wet towel test for germination. You'll see exactly what he's talking about.
Yep.
That's you can do it in very minimal space and don't need light. All you're really trying to do is get them to germinate.
Right.
Okay. So for our final question, you guys get to tell us your one favorite variety of tomato, and it can be from your company or others, but what is your favorite? Who wants to go first?
Well, my favorite's my favorite because it was my dad's favorite. He passed away a few years ago, and he liked really acid tomatoes, and he always made me grow Celebrity.
Yeah.
And that was well before I worked. Was even in high school, and I'd never do this was my future. He always planted Celebrity because he liked a real high acid tomato.
Is that Celebrity on your wall behind you?
That is not. Well, actually, it might be because that is Semi-Determinate. So that would have been Celebrity goes back to Pito Seed Company, which was one of the brands that came together to form Semi-Determinate, and that very likely could be some of those. But he liked those tomatoes that tingle your lips because it's got so much acid in it. That was his type of tomato, and he always loved Celebrity. I grow them every year.
Okay, excellent. Who's next?
I've already mentioned mine. Peter's variety Sun Sugar is my favorite tomato. It's a yellow or orange grape, if you will. It's very high yielding. But if I had to pick a slicer, this one I will be selfish on because it is a cicada variety, and it's a variety called STM 2255.
Yeah.
It's very disease resistant. It's very high yielding. It's the one I plant across the street in my neighbor's garden, and it's got very good flavor. So that one's my favorite, other than Sun Gold.
Yeah, if you're in the Southeast, you should grow 2255. It's Hossinator, the Hossinator tomato sold by Haas Seeds, Haas Tools. That is 2255. If you're in the Southeast, you should grow it.
Okay, Natasha, your turn.
I love making a ton of sun-dried tomatoes with a dehydrator. So I like Artemis because it has super nice green gel, and I think it's a very good sun-dried tomato. Yeah, even though I don't think it's traditionally used like that, I just love it for that.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to ask all of you to quickly type that in the chat, your favorites, especially those numbered varieties. Well, those numbered varieties, are they available to home gardeners?
Yeah, the STM 2255 is. If you just do a web search and type in tomato STM 2255, and I'll put it in the chat, you'll come up with hits of seed companies that offer it. Okay. If you want to make it really easy on yourself, as Peter mentioned, it's also sold under the name Hossinator tomato, and by Haas Tools. They have just rebranded it and they call it their Hossinator tomato.
Okay.
I'll put that in the chat. I just saw you put it in.
I just did, yeah. I was typing while you were talking.
It's available from other companies that are 2255, but he just calls it Hossinator 225, whatever he calls it. But
okay. And then you had a numbered one too, Peter, right?
No, ours Celebrity Plus.
Okay.
Or Celebrity. I mean, they're the same thing now. So.
Whoops, I missed Celebrity.
But it really depends on where you are at. If you're in Oregon, don't grow Celebrity.
Oh, there, you just did it. Thank you, Natasha. Okay. Well, I think we have it covered. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to Peter, Jason, and Natasha. A lot of great information. We have recorded this. We will put it out on our YouTube channel, and that way even more people can learn from our wonderful experts. So thank you and have a great afternoon and evening.